Hello and good evening. Welcome to Anupali. Thank you for joining me yet again. Thank you for answering the call to engage in prayer and fasting over the past 3 days, to acknowledge God's greatness in our lives and to pray for continued blessings for our families and our land. We have so much to be thankful for here in Dominica. We are grateful for God's protection from natural disasters over the past few years and His continuing mercies as we combat the global COVID-19 pandemic. It is my hope that over the past 3 days, we use the opportunity to thank God for all His provisions, His protection, and His grace and mercies in our lives, and that we recommitted our lives, plans, and future to Him, who knows all things and is able to do all things. Let the spirit of goodwill and reverence endure past this week of prayer, and as we ask for God's continued guidance in the months and years ahead. We are guaranteed success if we let the Almighty God lead us and direct us. In the past week, we advanced preparations for the national budget. We held pre-budget consultations with various stakeholders from the private sector to include the Dominica Association of Industry and Commerce and the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association, as well as various sports organizations. These types of consultations will continue as we develop a budget that is responsive to our times, but presents creative measures designed to improve our fortunes in the face of severe shocks to the economy. I also held a meeting with Douglas A. Fisk, the first secretary of the Political and Economic Section of the Embassy of the United States of America. Against the background of existing good relations between our two countries, we discussed areas of mutual interest. On Thursday, I participated in the summit of heads of state and heads of government of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of America's People's Trade Treaty, ALBA TCP, in Caracas, Venezuela. The occasion was the commemoration of the bicentennial of the Battle of Carabobo of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. At the end of the summit, leaders recognized the struggle of the heroic Venezuelan people to achieve their independence under the unwavering leadership of the liberator Simón Bolívar. I was happy to be part of the occasion that reintroduced and reinforced the cooperation, the brotherhood, and solidarity among our peoples, and reaffirmed our commitment to work towards a region free of any semblance of colonialism and indeed imperialism. On Monday, my friends, we go to the Parliament to debate a number of bills, including an act to provide for the establishment of the Dominica Hospitals Authority, which will make vast changes to the administration of the island's main hospital and other health facilities. And also, there will be a resolution to present a framework seeking Parliament's approval for a fiscal responsibility framework for Dominica. This, I am sure, will come up in more details later in this program. Tonight's program is another in our Meet the Press series, where members of the media are given the opportunity to engage me on a number of issues of the choice. We have with us Mr. Tim Dura, the owner of Dominica News Online, Mr. Gavin Richards, the sports editor at DBS Radio, and Mrs. Kimani Saint-Jean, a news reporter of Kyrie FM. Gentlemen, lady, welcome. I believe, Kimani, it's your first time here.
Yes.
These two other gentlemen have been here before. And thanks for making the time. I think I will pass on to you so you could tell our listeners and viewers, who are you?
My name is Kimani Saint-Jean, as you just introduced me. I have been in the news reporting business, in the communications business for about 8 years now, having worked with GIS for 5 years. And right now my reporting services are more or less on a consultancy basis. So I work with Kyrie FM, and I also work with other organizations wanting assistance with public relations and marketing.
Sure. So, Gavin, please.
Well, good evening, Prime Minister. Good evening, viewers, listeners of the Anupali program. My name is Gavin Richards. Like you said, I'm the sports editor at DBS Radio. Before that, I spent 15 years at Mappin 2K4, so I'm celebrating 21 years actually in the 21 years in the field of journalism. Time really flies. I remember you were my teacher at school at the State College, so that's really a sense of how quickly time flies by. Right. And happy to be here again.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. And of course, veteran Tim Dura.
Well, the Prime Minister said it all. But I want to say a very good evening to the viewers and listeners. It's good to be back here again. I welcome the opportunity to once again engage you, Prime Minister, in what I anticipate will be a very candid conversation.
So always. At this point, I will hand over to you, and you will coordinate among yourselves how you go about asking the questions and the turns. And at some point, I will take back my program.
Mr. Durant will lead the way.
One of the perks of being a veteran is that I get to lead the deference, from less senior members of the media. So I'm thankful that you're given the opportunity once again, Calvin and Kimani, to start the ball rolling.
Sure.
And I had planned some sort of fancy intro, Prime Minister, but you sort of what's the term they use? You something my thunder, stole my thunder, because you presented all information that I wanted to ask you about your trip,
My trip to Venezuela.
Yes. Okay.
To the great nation of Venezuela.
No problem. Okay, but that's great. So we have the information. But let me begin with the Mehul Choksi matter. Sure. Most people are familiar with the details of the matter. But I just want to give a summary for those people who might be hearing about it for the first time, because in media they always tell us that never assume that you write a story or you present a piece of information that everybody has heard it before. You have to assume that there's someone new who has not heard it before. So for that reason, with the Mehul Choksi situation, from what I've understood from the information that has been disseminated about it, Mehul Choksi is wanted in India for bank fraud. Now, he is an Antiguan citizen, and I think his Indian citizenship is, there's a question mark hanging over it, in that there are two versions. He says he was automatically lost his citizenship in India when he became a citizen of Antigua. India insists that they didn't approve his application. So, he is wanted for bank fraud in India, and he has been living in Antigua from 2018, I believe. In last month, he showed up in Dominica, and he was subsequently charged by the police for illegal entry. But he claimed that he was kidnapped in Antigua and brought to Dominica involuntarily. The matter attracted significant media attention. And Dominica finds itself, or has found itself, in the center, the focal point of that issue. I want to begin by asking you, Prime Minister, how do you feel as the leader of the country about the situation in which Dominica has become the focal point of a matter which essentially should have been between Antigua, India, and Choksi?
Well, I will try not to speak too much in detail about the matter, because these matters are before the courts of the Eastern Caribbean and also here in Dominica. Yes, Mr. Choksi is an Indian citizen. He got his citizenship, as I understand it, from the Citizenship by Investment program in that country. My understanding from the government of Antigua and the facts is that once the Indian government indicated that he was wanted on allegations of fraud in India, the government of Antigua revoked his citizenship and declared him a persona non grata in that country. Mr. Choksi is required under natural law and due process in our jurisdiction, because we, in these islands, we follow the rule of law. And everybody, irrespective of who the person is, once you're a human being, you're protected by our constitution and international norms. And so the government of Antigua, having revoked his citizenship and declared him a persona non grata, he challenged the decision of Antigua in the courts. And so this is where the matter is. My understanding is that the date has been set for November for one of the matters and January of 2021 for another matter. We are part of international security infrastructure. We have obligations to each other, not only to our own security, but to the security of the rest of the world. And any country in the world who would be interested in a citizen, whether it's a Dominican citizen or a citizen of their country or a citizen of a third country, if that person shows up on our shores, we have an obligation, an international obligation, to apprehend this person and let the person go through the process. To say that it is not a matter for Dominica, we have found ourselves in the center, yes, but the question is, if take out Mr. Chokshi, for example, he puts somebody else. If somebody is wanted by a government and we allow a person to roam freely in the streets without apprehending him, the same people who criticize the government will be criticizing the government for that, you know. You recall very clearly the issue of Monfared. That was heralded so long, so many times, and so forth. You know, so there's nothing dissimilar in that situation. Mr. Chokshi's rights and obligations will be respected by us, as have been the case. He has his lawyers, and his lawyers are fighting for him in the courts. But you know, the details of this, as I understand, as I said, I leave this to lawyers. As you see, why I've tried not to make any public statements. I made one or two statements about it at PBS Radio and Carry News and so forth. But outside of that, it's never been my practice to make comments about matters before the courts, even matters involving myself before the courts. So the courts will determine what will happen in this regard. But I don't think it's correct for anybody to say that we have no part to play in this. You know, there's for example, you know, I'm hearing Dominicans, especially the opposition, talking about Mr. Chokshi. But there's a young boy from Granby, Highland Granby, there's an extradition request by the United States government on allegation that he committed a crime in St. Thomas. And we are mandated, obligated to apprehend him. And the police acted on the instruction of the DPP, arrested the young man, and he is remanded at the state prison, awaiting his extradition hearing. Now, his lawyers will fight his case. If the courts believe that there is no reason to have him extradited to the United States, then he will go freely. And that's what it's about. And so this is what it is. So we can't want to be treating different people differently, depending on who they are or how much money they may have. All of us are subjected to the laws, irrespective of our position or how much money we have or how much money we don't have. And I believe that in this circumstance, if it is anybody, the Dominica has a right, an obligation to apprehend this person and bring the person before the courts and let the courts determine. Whatever the courts determined in that regard, then the government of Dominica will respect. I've heard people say that and just to say that the government of Antigua did the right thing by revoking his citizenship because he applied for the citizenship. The government of Antigua said that he did not provide all of the facts of the matter, of the matter when he applied for citizenship in Antigua and Barbuda, and so they did the responsible thing. So I don't think this is placing Dominica in a bad light. I think those people who have common sense, people who look at these things from a logical standpoint, people who understand, devoid of their politics, who understand how these matters work and ought to work, recognize that we've done the right thing to apprehend the gentleman and let the process be followed. If we had allowed the gentleman to go or anybody else to go, we detained 15 Indian nationals who came into Dominica illegally some months ago. They were brought before the courts. They were declared to have come in the country illegally, and they were deported. Nobody asked questions about 15, but we concerned about one. 15 came in. Nobody asked a question about this. Nobody made this an issue. The Haitian nationals, our brothers and sisters from CARICOM country, who come from Dominica illegally, we deport them. Nobody asked a question about our Haitian brothers. Coming into our country illegally. And Dominicans have been arrested and brought before the magistrates and charged for coming to Dominica illegally. So the law is being evenly applied, irrespective of who the person is, and everybody has a right before the courts. So I believe that this is the right thing for any responsible person to do, country to do, authority to do. As I said, we will respect the rights of Mr. Choksi, and his lawyers will fight his case, and let the independence of the courts determine this. So I'm very careful I don't get too much involved in the details of the matter, because these are matters of sub judice. And even in Parliament, where we have protection to speak on these matters, we avoid speaking about matters where they're before the courts, because we don't want to prejudice anybody's rights and privileges in our jurisprudence.
Mr. Prime Minister, we had a conversation prior to the program,
Sure.
my colleagues and I, and they agreed to allow me to ask a couple of follow-up
No,
questions.
that's fine. That's fine.
But Mr. Choksi is still a citizen of Antigua. The fact his citizenship was revoked, but he's appealing, his appeal.
Yeah,
so therefore,
there's a stay.
where does that put him? Really?
Well, that's I'm not a lawyer. I did get acceptance in law school at UWI, but I didn't get them. I couldn't have the monies to go to law school in 1992. But I'm not a lawyer. I tell people I'm just a village politician. So I don't want to get involved in the details of this.
I have a more important question, but I just
Sure.
wanted to, for my own,
the fact is, whether he is whether he is an Antiguan citizen or not, and even as Antiguan nationals within CARICOM come on the OECS, you have the free movement, but there are issues of security issues, and if you break the law, then you are subjected to the provisions and of our law. But I don't want to get involved in the details and the technical legal issues. That's a matter for your lawyers to deal with.
Okay, but Prime Minister, I must ask you this question.
Sure.
And I'm hoping you can answer. Dominica has been accused, along with Antigua, and that originated with Choksi himself.
Mm.
When he complained of being kidnapped and brought to Dominica, he claimed that he beaten and so on. And he implicated Dominica, Antigua, and India in what he described as a plot to have him sent back to India. There have been several reports and stories coming up about other people involved, the schooner at Picard in Portsmouth, the jet which landed at Douglas Charles on the 28th of May, and all of that tends to suggest, that there was, I would say that is information that has surfaced suggesting that there was some sort of collusion. What I want to ask you, though, is why have you felt it not necessary to address that as, nationally, let people know, hey, here is what has been said, but here's our position as a government on this based on the allegations that are being made.
Yeah, but the question is, should the government respond to every allegation that's made or every innuendo that is there? I've also heard that there are opposition elements who've been offered money by Mr. Choksi. Should I respond to that as well? So the question is, what do you respond to, what do you not respond to? This idea of a collusion between the government of Antigua and the government of Dominica is total nonsense. It's total nonsense. There'll be people who commit crimes in broad daylight, kill somebody, and they say that they are innocent of murder. Everybody will have an opportunity or to present whatever evidence they believe is in their favor, to make the case more acceptable before a judge or magistrate. Majority of people who are arrested deny that they have committed the crime, even if there are people who have seen it. Whatever facts, whatever information Mr. Choksi may have, he has an opportunity to present before the courts, and so that's where these things are. But to say that the government of Dominica and the government of Antigua colluded to give me a break, that's total nonsense. We don't get involved ourselves in those kind of activities, those kind of practices, and not at all. Come on. That is absurd. We reject this, and it is unfortunate that anybody would want to propagate this an unsubstantiated claim by a gentleman who will be before our courts. If you go to the state prison now, and you can drive there now, I'm sure that you will meet anybody who will tell you that they committed the crime. I don't think anybody will tell you this. So this is not true at all.
But you must understand too that it has been propagated by international media, not
Well,
just in Dominica.
which media though? You see,
mostly Indian media.
Well,
mostly, yeah.
well, you
Indian
know,
media,
which media promotes it? You know, this is not mainstream media promoting this thing. Clearly, Mr. Chuck, there are people who for and against this matter who will speak in a positive light about Mr. Choksi, and those who will speak in a negative light against Mr. Choksi. You've seen this. I've read some of them. So it depends on who is speaking or who is writing. They will bring the particular points forward. So it's not everything that's in the media that is true, as you know. Everything that's in the media that is true. So does the government have to respond to every single thing? You know, every single thing. But it is just mind-boggling, Tim, that here it is, we have an opposition leader who has become preoccupied with this thing. But who is not considering himself with regards to the young boy from Highland Granby? Why?
I understand, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm not representing.
No, I'm not responding to you. I'm responding to the people because you asked the question before the people. So I'm responding not to you, Tim, at all. You know, I'm posing the question. As part of it. You know. So I think if I'm being asked questions, I don't want me to respond to everything, then the whole gamut of the issues must be presented to me. But no, this is total nonsense. If the courts rule that Mr. Choksi has to be sent back to Antigua, or there's an arrangement sent back to Antigua, then we respect that. So there's no issue with this. We don't hold a brief. The government of Dominica doesn't hold a brief for the government of India. Neither do we hold a brief for Mr. Choksi. We hold a brief for the rule of law and for the provisions in our constitution, and we hold a brief for our international obligations to international rule of law. We are part of the Interpol infrastructure. We're part of the Commonwealth. We are members of the United Nations. We're members of the Organization of American States. We're members of OECS and CARICOM. If a Dominican were to commit a crime in Dominica, somebody kills a member of family in Dominica, and the person goes to another country, so that country should not apprehend this person and bring him back to Dominica to face the charge. So we have to be very careful what we say and what we ask the government to do, and be careful that we don't ask questions when it suits us, but when something else similar happens, that we have something different to say. And if when this guy was there, you saw how much talk about this Monfared and so on. I mean, whole years of this. If Mr. Monfared had stayed in Dominica at the time that the Iranian government had asked for him, we would have apprehended him. We would have apprehended him, and there was a discussion on the decision to apprehend Mr. Monfared so that the Iranian authorities could present to us the charges. You know, so and he was a Dominican citizen. You understand? He was a Dominican citizen through the CBI program. So we hold a brief for international law, our responsibilities, our obligations, and we should never be only preoccupied with our security. So this is not this is a matter for all of us to consider ourselves, but we have to be responsible in what we say and what we do.
Mr. Prime Minister, I know the Choksi situation is an important one, but there are also a number of other important issues to discuss. For one, the budget. At the start of the program, you mentioned that you were meeting with representatives from the private sector, the DAIC, the Hotel and Tourism Association, and whatnot. In terms of the budget, what can we possibly expect, given the circumstances that we're in right now with the challenges of COVID-19?
Well, every budget in this country is a difficult one to put together. I mean, this country has huge challenges. There are lots of demands, but you have a finite amount of resources, and you are susceptible to external shocks, natural disasters, and currently a pandemic. And the pandemic has persisted for more than 15 months, for a very long time now, and certainly for the rest of the year. So we are putting this budget in taking that backdrop into consideration. I mean, you saw what we did last year. We came up with some very brilliant ideas, policies and legislation to stimulate the economy and to cause activities to be had. And we've seen the results of it. We go into this budget mindful of the need for the government to continue to stimulate the economy, because in these small islands, the government is really the engine of growth, because the government is the biggest spender. And with the public sector investment program, that permeates every facet of our society and every sector of the country. And so of course we go in the budget with prudence, with responsibility. We're always responsible. But I think it should be an exciting budget. As you know, we have signed the agreement for the international airport, so that will certainly play a very important role in budgets to come. And so you will get an exciting budget this year.
Okay, but Mr. PM, we know that revenues has been severely impacted by COVID-19. Through the last fiscal year, you were able to do some maneuvering. The public did not really feel the impact per se. Moving forward for this year, can we expect certain cuts, certain different fiscal announcements to? Well,
I can't speak about fiscal policy decisions at this stage. The budget will be mindful of the reality we're confronting, and we are seeking to focus on some fundamental issues in the context of the environment, and of course preparing ourselves for the subsiding of the pandemic. So we're looking to the future and what can we do to stimulate the economy and to sustain the activity within the economy. The issue of cuts, you won't see any dramatic cuts. No cuts whatsoever in terms of our services. All of the safety nets will be there. A number of the decisions we took last year to stimulate the economy, they may very well remain. So we're mindful of the drop in revenue, but over the last several months, we have been seeing a steady improvement in the revenue collection, especially with VAT, which tells us there's some activity, there's increased activity, pre-pandemic situation coming back. We're preparing ourselves for the return of cruise ships to Dominica. We also preparing ourselves to make the shift with regards to our protocols, so that traveling to Dominica can be less hassle with travel to Dominica, and therefore we expect to see more people coming into our country. We are still pursuing heavily air access improvement, notwithstanding the fact that we're building the airport, and you have seen last week American Airlines making a test flight to Dominica to study the possibility of possibly flying from Miami to Dominica, direct flight. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on this. It's not a fait accompli yet, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. We continue to invest heavily in agriculture. Agriculture to ensure food security, but also be able to continue to export agricultural produce. This month, I'm hoping that we're a bit late with regards to the $27 million from the Caribbean Development Bank that will go to the aid bank and will be lent to small and medium-sized enterprises in Dominica at about 3.53%. And that will be available to them to invest and to expand and to sustain their businesses. So there are a number of areas, infrastructure, there are a number of the roads enhancement project. We will move with this on the Great Judge Street and also Independence Street. We'll be coming in, we'll see housing continued. There's also a major housing project that we will speak about in the budget that I have mentioned before. That is the Future Housing Development Program at Warner that will target public officers, private sector employees, and also people in the diaspora. And so we will, if you're a public officer, that home will be assigned to the government housing on board, who will then sell it to you. But it will be sold to you at cost. So there will be no profit margin for the government to this. So if the house costed us, let's say, $300,000, we'll sell it to you at $300,000. And possibly at a 0% interest rate to the public officers. And banks which want to participate, because people who work in the private sector are unable to contract loans when government loans on board, we will reduce the price of the house to reflect a reduction in the interest rate had you been a public officer. And then if you're in diaspora, then you would have you would benefit from any special graces, but you'll be able to buy a property in there. So we'll be speaking about this in the budget. And there are one or two other policies that taxes. I know you want to ask me about taxes, and in this country, when you put the budget together, there's always a justification for taxes. While the CBI has been doing very well, and we thank God for this, it's been sustaining the numbers, we have never really used the CBI for recurrent expenditure, except after the hurricane, and of course during the pandemic. But prior to Hurricane Maria, we only use the CBI funds for capital investments and for payment of external debt. But we never use it to pay salaries or recurrent expenditure, goods and services. It's mainly for public sector investment. And so the pandemic has also caused us to use some of those funds to meet the management of COVID-19 and to pay salaries in some cases sometimes, and to meet some of our day-to-day expenses.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, so I realize that for the budget, you want to keep some of those things and make those announcements. So most of the questions that I had regarding that, you sort of alluded to them already. So I want to move on to the international airport. Last week, we saw a brief, I don't want to call it a protest, but a contention. Some persons from the Wesley area sort of disgruntled that they were not getting work as truckers, while other truckers from other communities were getting work. In terms of ensuring that everyone, if you want to call it, gets a piece of the pie in terms of the construction of the international airport, what provisions are being made?
Well, I mean, there'll be many opportunities for local people to participate in the construction of the airport at various phases and stages. As it is now, we are building, I believe, about 32 homes in Wesley for persons who have been affected by the airport and who the government has agreed to build homes for. And that will include the infrastructure, roads, water, electricity, all of these things placed underground, in underground docks, to build the resilient definition that we have articulated. And all of these homes are being constructed by local contractors, all Dominicans, local contractors. All of the concrete comes from local suppliers. We buy all the cement from here, we buy all the sand and aggregates from here. The truckers are Dominicans. I think what happened in Wesley last week was a slight misunderstanding by way of communication. These truckers have been engaged. I think there was a misunderstanding or miscommunication between themselves and the service providers there. And I believe that was rectified. We are going to move towards the clearing of the site, the over 400 plus acres of land. That's a light clearing for the time being to make way for the geotechnical studies and etc. And all local Dominicans will be engaged on this. People who have equipment will be engaged. But the other thing too, I believe that our service providers have to be mindful of is that this is a competitive environment, and it's also a free market economy. And the issue of pricing, we have to be careful that we don't price ourselves out of a job. We cannot want to pay all our debt and still have money on one job. It has to be jobs, you see. And so we have to learn how to build relationships with potential clients. And I think this is something that all of us in Dominica who provide services to the public need to be mindful of. We should not want to overcharge somebody, maybe depending on who the person is. Price is a price. And so that's my simple advice. But there'll be a lot of work for Dominicans. We've been in the lab, our local contractors been in the lab. We've been in the lab there. people will be engaged. I mean, you're gonna need a lot of people on this project. It's a massive undertaking, and though there'll be a main contractor for this, there'll be many opportunities for Dominicans to be engaged in many Dominicans to be engaged in. So I think it's better for us to place ourselves and be informed, reach out to the government and MMC, and discussions can be had with you and possibly engaged.
Okay. I have another question regarding the airport, and it has to go past the construction of the airport. We know that it's going to take about 5 to 6 years as announced, but have we considered during that time ensuring that things are put in place that as soon as the airport is built, then immediately it can be functional?
Oh yes. Towards the end of this year, before the end of this year, we will engage an international firm that will assist the Ministry of Tourism in not only promoting the airport, but promoting the country. The airport is just a part of what we're offering. And so we will be engaging this international firm who will start sharing all of the aspects of Dominica, or sites, or same way we go and marketing our country, to all of the airlines. So that will start right now. And so we will share with them the designs of the airport and the capacity of the airport. So this will be done while the airport is being built. We're not going to wait until the airport is built to start discussing with airlines and promoting Dominica and promoting the airport. Not only airlines, but tour operators and agents and all of these people who are involved in organizing tours and excursions and making bookings for various individuals and companies and airlines. So to share with them what we're doing in Dominica, and Dominica will certainly is the best place to come to visit. So this is we're taking care of as well.
Last time I was here, Prime Minister, we spoke about the studies being undertaken. We spoke in particular about geotechnical study. But I also understand there are other studies like the EIA and the finance and economic feasibility study and so on. What sort of progress has been made since we last spoke in terms of those studies?
Yeah, tremendous progress. The EIA is ongoing. There's been a preliminary report submitted by the consultant. He's a local consultant, and he has partnered with an international firm because he doesn't have all of the critical mass to carry out this task. And in the next few months, we will get another report from him. But this is ongoing. The EIA, he's going to be part of the construction, because the EIA will tell you these are the impact on the environment, these are the actions to mitigate against it, and we need to ensure that whatever actions we have to take to mitigate against the impact on the environment, that these things are captured in the designs and also during construction. The geotechnical studies we have procured. That's the developer, all of the equipment for the geotechnical studies. This will be an ongoing activity. It is not a one-time stuff and then you stop. And so we're hoping that this will come in. This is why we're moving to clear the land to allow for the construction of the roadways and access to the land, so that we can do the geotechnical studies there. And of course, the economic and social impact. This is ongoing. We've also engaged Dr. Honeychurch to assist us in ensuring that the historical heritage of this part of Dominica, because this part of Dominica has a very rich history, especially where the Kalinagos are concerned, because this whole area was occupied by Kalinagos. That we, whatever artifacts we have, that we can preserve them for our own posterity and for the benefit of future generations. So there are a number of things happening. The designs are being finalized by the American firm, and as you saw, we signed the agreement. And also, I hear people talk about we should tender the airport and so forth. We have signed an agreement, as I've said publicly, with MMC as a developer. There's a notion out there by some people that the money is there. And we're just given IMC the money. This is not true. As I've said, this is a pen, and I'm telling you, okay, well, yeah, I'm giving you this pen, and I want you to build 5 homes for the government. But you have to go, you cannot build a home with the pen. So it's a by investment program in itself. People have this notion that the money is there in the Middle East or some other country, and you just go and you present this agreement and you get the money. Oh, this is it's difficult work. And we are competing with several countries, European countries. Vanuatu is a major competitor, and within the Caribbean too, there are many competitors. I mean, this is like us saying to me, this is like us going to the Middle East with sand to sell. It's not easy, and so and then what the developer will do is to raise the funds, and he is not going to start the airport after he has raised all of the funds required for the airport. He's going to raise the funds as he goes along, but he's signing the agreement up front, and he's starting the work up front. Which is a major undertaking. And this is why when people say that there are other people who say they could do that, bring them to me. Anybody who says that they could build a project like Dominica and start right away, and I would like to meet these people. And then the issue of tendering. What we have done also is that this project is going to cost you over $1 billion. Now, these projects you'll have to sign contracts that meet all of the international standards. And so a contract like over 100, let's say $1 billion EC, you would have to have a guarantee of 10%, which is $100 million. There are companies that have been preparing bids for this project that have said to us that they have spent in excess of $3 million in preparing the documents. So it is not about building a house or 100 head piece of road. This is a major airport, a major construction. There are so many parts to this airport that one has to take into consideration. And I believe people should be applauding us for this extraordinary effort to be able to use the CBI to finance the airport.
But prior to that, there was talk about a Chinese firm interested in, helping us to construct the international airport.
The government of China. The government of China, as you know, they have said so publicly, gave a commitment to assist us in constructing the airport. With the pandemic, there has been a delay because the technicians are unable to come in. There's a team of 20 people who were scheduled to come to Dominica in early the first half of 2020. Then the pandemic came, couldn't travel. And we've had Zoom calls with them to discuss the issues, and they've asked us certain questions. But I, as the Prime Minister, decided, look, this may take us longer than we think because of the pandemic. And so we made a deliberate decision in the Cabinet to pursue the possibility of utilizing CBI funds. And MNC indicated that they believe that they are able to take on this huge task. And we entered into discussions with them, and we were able to move very quickly towards signing an agreement. Not quickly, but it took us over a year to really finalize the agreement with them. And so we decided to move ahead, and we used the old Chinese proverb that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and we decided to take the first step because the airport is so critical to us. I mean, setting aside political considerations, this airport is crucial for the country to sustain the investments that we've made in various sectors, to create better opportunities for young people and all young people who have gone to universities, and people who are involved in agriculture and light manufacturing. I mean, I believe that this is the missing link for Dominica. I mean, Dominica has all of the attributes where tourism is concerned. I don't believe that there are many countries in the world that can compare with us. But we have a problem with access. And somebody who's coming to Dominica for vacation and has to overnight in Barbados and Antigua may just decide, well, it's better to stay in Barbados and Antigua rather than having to go for this hassle. And at what stage are we going to go beyond this? So I have heard questions of people who are opposed to the airport. I have no difficulty in people asking questions for clarification or for more information. But the kind of comments I'm hearing about this is very unfortunate where this project is concerned. But that's life, and sometimes people place politics before country, and this is one of the situations. But there's transparency in the process, and we're grateful that we are able to finance the CBI, the airport for the CBI, as we've done in the Margaret Hospital, as we've done with bridges, as we've done with roads, as we've done with schools, health centers. So the track record of the government is there in terms of hotels, in terms of utilizing the CBI funds in a prudent and a responsible manner for the greater benefit of the citizens.
Prime Minister, with regard to transparency, you just mentioned it. I think people who are concerned about the tendering process, I guess that's the main concern that they have. The transparency of, or the lack of transparency.
But what transparency in what sense, though? Are they saying that we should allow Dominican companies to tender or to bid rather for the airport?
I would think so. I think that's the open up the tender. The
question is, I don't think any company in Dominica has the financial ability to tender for this project. Look at this project, $127 million from the World Bank. There's no Dominican company really qualified for this. Jack Gallagher was registered in Dominica, he got it. Structure Dam, the contract in Dominica. The other company was, I believe, there's an international company, and I believe, so this contract, you require, the pre-qualification process. And you have to meet certain criteria, like the CDB, like the World Bank projects. If you do not meet the criteria, the pre-qualification criteria, you can't tender. How many companies in Dominica have $100 million in the bank that they could put at the guarantee?
But what about the possibility of partnering with international companies?
Then this is where they have the opportunity. As I said, there are huge opportunities for us to fit ourselves in the bigger scheme of things. The many opportunities there, and people have started to benefit from it. As I said, with the housing there, with the clearing of the site, and the Dominicans who have gone in and bought their big trucks and prepare themselves. The people who have prepared themselves. So there'll be many opportunities for Dominicans to fit themselves in different areas of the construction. So I think it's a matter for all of us to position ourselves. As I said, people who are interested in working, to position ourselves and to seek information as to how can I be engaged on this airport. In what way can I be engaged? There'll be opportunities. I mean, huge opportunities for Dominicans to be engaged. But insofar as a Dominican company being the main contractor, I mean, you're going to need at least, based on what I've been advised, you're going to need over 100 pieces of equipment on site. Massive pieces of equipment, because you have serious earth movement to do on the site and the cotton field. I mean, so this is not a light undertaking, and of course, these contracts have to be issued, as I said, taking into consideration the international conditions and requirements for contract of that nature. And I've been advised that you will need about 10% of the contractual sum as a financial guarantee. In the bank, a financial instrument, whether bonds or whatever it is, or cash in the bank, in the event that you have some construction errors, that the client can access these funds to remedy the construction errors. So Dominicans will be engaged on this, and I think we should look at this from a more positive standpoint and to see how we can place ourselves. But there'll be huge opportunities for Dominicans. We're going to be looking for young people to work in the lab, because we not only to also train them, because these things are going to become part of the state. The lab is going to stay Dominica, all of the equipment, and we're going to need people to be able to use those equipment. And for example, on the Granby Road, Bacatel Road, we've had to use a regional firm to do the geotechnical studies. Nobody in Dominica could do it. Nobody has the equipment to do it. And after searching all over the Caribbean, and because of the pandemic, you were challenged. Finally, I believe, got a company from St. Lucia or Barbados, one of the islands, and the CDB entered into a contractual arrangement to do the geotechnical studies on this road. So I think we have to look on position ourselves, set the politics aside in this project, and look at this as a national project and see how can I assist this project in being successfully implemented.
Just you mentioned the cost the airport. Over 1 billion, you said?
Over 1 billion.
Over 1 billion. I just wanted to raise with you. I was having a conversation with a project, somebody involved in project management, with some experience. And he made this comment to me. Completed technical studies inform a detailed design. The detailed design informs detailed drawings, which in turn facilitate detailed pricing.
Yeah.
The fact that you have already given a contract, signed a contract.
No.
Yes.
We signed an agreement.
An agreement.
We haven't signed a contract to build.
Okay. All right.
We signed an agreement.
Great. Okay.
Right. No. We are going to tender based on the master plan and the volume of material that has been estimated based on the feasibility study that has to be moved on the site. So, as I understand it from the expert, I'm not an expert, as I understand it from the expert, they've gone to tender understanding that there might be either a lower cost or higher cost, depending on what the geotechnical study says, that the actual amount of earth you have to move. So you leave a space, a gap, where there can be an adjustment to the price, the final price. But it allows you to buy time and to have a better appreciation as to what is going to be likely the cost of the airport and so forth. So this is why we're saying it's about 1 billion, over 1 billion. So it might be just above in terms of construction costs or just below. So that is left for the evaluation of the bids and so forth. So you allow some movement in terms of the earth movement and other components of the thing. Because what we have done is that the tender documents have been broken down into pieces, into different pieces. So it's not just one tender on this, it's a tender on the various components of the airport. And which will allow us now to be able to make some movements based on the gap and so. So the question is correct in one sense, but the way we're approaching it also has been done in other projects in the past and in other areas as well. So the person is absolutely correct, but that also allows us to achieve our objective that we're seeking to achieve.
Okay, please indulge me. One more question while we're on this. The studies that you've talked about, do you plan at any stage of the project to make them accessible to the public? Or when do you plan to do that?
Well, once they're available, the AIA will be a public document. It will be a public document. The engagement of Dr. Honeychurch will be a public engagement. The economic and social impact will be a public document. And of course, we will share with the country the detailed drawings and designs of the airport, the various components of it. As a matter of fact, I have mandated the International Airport Development Company to set up a Facebook page and a website and to have regular updates of everything taking place at the airport. Pictures and words and also we'll arrange for teams of people to come on site and to see what's happening and so forth. And this is the reasons why I'm not sure the board that we have is the largest board you may find anywhere in the Caribbean. About 19 people on the board. So we did it deliberately to ensure that there's a wide cross-section of engagement, of skilled Dominican professionals, whether they're resident in Dominica or to Dominica. So we have people who are resident in the United States, in Antigua, because they have certain skills. They have been placed on the board to bring to the company their skills, their talents, and so forth. We engage in ECHO. We've had several meetings with ECHO. They've asked for another meeting to advise us on certain aspects. We've had meetings with ICAO. We engage in them. We also will bring a firm in to engage FAA and ensure that FAA is fully engaged on this airport. So we're seeking to engage all the stakeholders. There was a consultation on Saturday in Wesley with church leaders, with community leaders, village council, the police, and everybody else there who is a leader or has a group, so that the government team and the PAL rep, along with the PAL rep, could share updates with the residents, the leadership of the community from Wesley, Woodford, and Palm Tree. And we intend to have regular updates, the community town hall meetings, group sessions. The other thing that we'll be doing the intention is for the government to set aside some funds targeting the residents of Wesley, Woodford, and Palm Tree, insofar as their interest in investing, whether it's in agriculture or whether it's in tourism or to provide services for the number of people who will be coming through the airport. Because we want to ensure, as far as possible, the residents of Wesley, Marigot, Palm Tree, Calibishi, Woodford will benefit from the presence of the airport, not only during construction, but post-construction. And even during construction, a number of people who want to pile the trade, who want to provide meals and services to the people who will be working there. We'll also be providing them with some funds by way of soft loans, so that they can have startup capital and working capital, so that people feel empowered and they feel that they also benefit, even if they're not employed directly, but indirectly they're benefiting. So I think we just have to look on the positive. Whatever questions and concerns we have, let them be serious and legitimate and sincere ones, but they should not appear to be ones that are bent on preventing or not wanting the airport to be built. So we're open to any questions or concerns people have, any suggestions. Anybody who would like to make a contribution, want to be part of the process, we're prepared to engage you and to utilize your skills.
So, Prime Minister, the airport discussion could go on and on and on. It's a very important one. Another matter I'd like to discuss with you is the COVID-19 vaccines. And of course, we've been on this vaccination drive for the past few months. I have a few questions. One, your feedback as to how the vaccination drive has gone. Are you satisfied with the way the Dominicans have responded to that? And also, the vaccines available so far have been the AstraZeneca and one from the Chinese, and I think Sinopharm as well. In terms of the availability for the vaccines from America, Johnson & Johnson's, Moderna, and Pfizer, how soon can we expect that?
Well, part of the challenge all of us had in the Caribbean and the developing world is that countries where the vaccines were being manufactured, and there was an export ban on these vaccines, so we could not have access to these vaccines in any significant number prior to that. Now, President Biden, and I want to thank the U.S. government for making a commitment to provide countries like ours in the Caribbean with a certain quantity of vaccines. I'm not in a position to say how much now, because they have asked us not to mention how much until we finalize the agreement. So really very soon we'll also have access to the Pfizer as a gift from the government of the United States of America. So in the next month or so, Dominicans will also have access to the Pfizer from the government. And of course, that will also be free of charge to those who wish to have it. But the reality is, we have vaccines that are approved by the WHO, the Sinopharm, and the AstraZeneca. And we want Dominicans to avail themselves to these vaccines. So far, all things considered, I think we've been doing well. I don't like to. I'm more somebody who deals with positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. I mean, so far over 20,000 Dominicans have taken this double dose of the 2 doses of the vaccine, and over 19,000 a single dose. So that's not, and this is an adult population. So that's not that's a significant number. We would like for more people, obviously, to avail themselves to take it. I think there's vaccine hesitancy everywhere in the world, including Dominica. In the United States, they have had to offer citizens joints, participate in lottery. So every country is trying different things to see how they can coax people to take the vaccine and so forth. And so far, we have not had the occasion to do that. Because by and large, I think Dominicans are coming out. And first, because we have been largely successful with the management and containment of COVID-19, and we thank God for that. There are people who feel like, there's no COVID in Dominica, why should I take a vaccine? I haven't gotten it, Why take it? That's what happened in St. Kitts. That's why people are rushing out to get the vaccine. So you'll have this This is why we have to continue to be mindful that COVID-19 is there. I just listened to the address by the president of South Africa earlier today, where there is a third wave, and there is an additional variant there. In Japan, in Tokyo, there's been a surge. In Israel, I've seen that they have had to reverse the no mask requirement and indicating people that you should wear a mask. So we have to be careful. Just one, in St. Kitts, just one person, and they have over 300 cases now. Yeah. So we have to continue to be vigilant. This thing is going to be with us for a very long time. I believe this COVID-19 is going to be like tuberculosis. It's going to be around for a very long time. It's not going to go away. We just have to be mindful of the risk and to put systems in place to mitigate against the risk. And the vaccines will help us with an additional shield against COVID-19, and it will enhance our immune system, our defense system, and place us in a better situation. So my encouragement to those of us those who have not taken it, you should really avail yourself. It is for your own good. It is for the good of your family and good for the country. And so we have to do this for ourselves, and very importantly, do it for the country.
So PM, just a follow-up on the vaccines. We noticed that some of the other countries are now starting to give it to children. At what point in time will we see Dominica going down that road?
Well, we get advice on this from both the Pan American Health Organization and also CARPHA, which is the original advisory group within CARICOM, Health Advisory Group within CARICOM. So we have been following the developments in the United States and elsewhere with children, well, younger adults. And once we get the medical advice that it's okay to go ahead and administer it to the less than 18-year-olds, then we will certainly move ahead with that.
Okay. Mr. Prime Minister, recently we readjusted the number of days required for quarantine to 2 days, but there seems to be some hiccup in the process because some people are complaining that they have to spend longer. So is that being addressed?
Yeah, it's been addressed. I think it's a matter of communication. I have said to the Cabinet, the Minister of Health and the Minister of Tourism, that we should have a unit that deals with, that liaises with the tourists and the Ministry of Health. I don't think it's fair for the nurses to be the ones answering the telephone and somebody asking to come and do a PCR at the hotel and so forth. The nurses are stretched. They've been working very hard, and I think we should have a separate unit that will make the appointment. So if a tourist comes in, there's somebody at the hotel who would call, say, look, I have a tourist here, he's doing so and so. His PCR needs to be done tomorrow. And so that person now at that unit would be in touch with the Ministry of Health to make the appointment, and either send an email or WhatsApp or a call and say, well, your appointment is at the Roosevelt Health Center at 10 o'clock. So when the person goes, the person is expected, and the person is so I think it has to do with the mechanics of the implementation, but I believe that we need to have better communication appointment making system, and also relaying the results. Because as it is now, I believe that we are approaching it in an archaic manner, where you have to send the physical hard copy to the guests. Now, if you're driving from maybe Rosa to Portsmouth, and you have to go to La Plaine, and you have to go to this, you have to go to Rosalie, you have to, and so it's only this delay. Can we not get a person to sign a declaration form and say, okay, you could send it to my email address, or you can send it to my WhatsApp, and this is my number, and you sign authorizing it. So I know the Ministry of Health is concerned about privacy of people's information and so forth, but you can authorize it to be sent to your email or your WhatsApp message. So you once it comes up from the lab, in 5 minutes you can have your results, rather than waiting several hours later to get the result that's ready in the morning. So I think we have to look at it. I know there's been a discussion within the government, with the Ministry of Health and government, about making further changes to the protocols and to reciprocate what Barbados has done in respect to Dominicans. So if you are fully vaccinated, you come in for negative PCR, then there's no need to do the PCR 2 days later. everything is a risk. You have to put a system in place to mitigate against the risk. But I think we have to make the changes. You've seen the United Kingdom has placed us on the green list,
Right.
so that if you come to holiday in Dominica, you don't have to go into quarantine in the United Kingdom. And so we have to recognize that there are countries that are seeing us as a safe place, and therefore we have to reciprocate and so on. But of course, mindful of the risk associated with this. But we have to keep taking decisions. So there's a thin line, but we have to keep opening up, and we have to keep relaxing on this stuff. But mindful that we have to maintain the protocols. But this is where vaccination is so important. If the vast majority of us were vaccinated, then it's an easier decision to make by the government. But the government is mindful that there are quite a number of us who have not been vaccinated, and sometimes that places an adverse risk, and then the pullback on the decision has to be made. But I believe very soon the cabinet will meet to approve of those protocols and to reciprocate to countries and create this bubble within CARICOM, I say, and I think Antigua is moving towards it as well. And so countries with low rates of low incidence of the coronavirus, then you would allow them to come in. But fully vaccinated people.
Can I get one more question? Okay, it has to do with the coronavirus as well. In terms of cruise ships, I know we had said that by June we should see cruise ships coming in. So we expect that July we should see, or August, this summer we should see cruise ships. Are we still concerned?
No, we're not concerned. I mean, we're ready for them. They're the ones who have pushed back the date of commencement, so we're ready. We're putting things in place. We have improved the sites, many sites. We've continued to do some work on the various sites, and we did some work on the bayfront as well. We're ready. Systems are in place. But again, it comes back to the issue of vaccination and all the service providers, the vendors in the valley, the vendors on the bayfront, the vendors in the Calico territory, the vendors at the Indian River, the tour guides, the bus drivers, the tour operators. It is in their interest, their personal interest, to get vaccinated, and so that it places us in a better situation. It places them in a better situation because they are in a much better situation to protect themselves from the virus.
But did you not mention some time ago, you and I think other officials of the industry mentioned the possibility of making vaccination among that group of service providers mandatory?
Yeah, there's been discussion about it, and make it part of the application process. Make it part of the application process to get certified. And this is in people's interest. Government, as you know, we've been very careful about not imposing this state on us. This is why at the earliest opportunity we got to discontinue the state of emergency and curfew. We did that, and you realize that we have been very prudent with regards to the health considerations and economic considerations, and trying to have a sensible balance between the two. And so we will not. I don't think we will make vaccination mandatory. I don't think we'll necessarily do that. But you never know the situation for now. No, but you never know for the future, because with all these variants coming around, you just need one person to come in, and it can wreak havoc in your country, So vaccination is important, and we have to be mindful of the protocols. We are behaving in Dominica largely like coronavirus is done, and we're back to normal. We're not back to normal yet.
So, Prime Minister, it looks like the time is slowly coming upon us. I just want to ask a quick question as it relates to sports. And as it relates to the issue of second-generation Dominicans, if they to get the opportunity to get a passport, citizenship to represent Dominica. We saw a situation of football, for example, where Jack Sarah Green expresses a willingness to play for Dominica, but because of the situation that his parents were not Dominican, but his grandparents were Dominican, he was not eligible for a passport. What sort of provisions would need to be made for that to become a reality so that we can take advantage of the second-generation Dominicans out there in the diaspora?
Well, we have to make constitutional legal changes. We're trying to facilitate the gentleman under special provision. But there was a lot of miscommunication or cross-communication. There were too many people communicating with the government at the time, so we got confused about this. And we thought, okay, well, it was only for the march against Dominican Republic. Was it Dominican Republic or
Dominican
Panama?
Republic and Panama.
Panama, then once that over, then it was no longer required, and then we were told, yes, it was required because there are other marches and so forth. So I think there was some cross wires, but we're already trying to facilitate the young gentleman, under special arrangements to provide him with citizenship and so that he could represent Dominica. So I think it was just miscommunication. I'd already given my no objection to facilitating his application.
So is this something that will be available to all potential Dominicans, well, not Dominicans, but people with Dominican heritage overseas, that they can get that sort of application or passport for the purpose of sports?
But you see, we're also trying to be careful with this as well. There's a drawback to this. If you are people who have never been to Dominica, yes, your grandmother was a Dominican, but you've never been to Dominica. You never spent a weekend in Dominica. I'm not saying in this particular case, okay? You'll have to show some kind of affinity, some kind of connection to the country beyond just the fact that your grandmother was a Dominican. And so you'd have to show some kind of connection, not because you want to be on a cricket team or you want to be on a tennis team. And give me citizenship. What happens to the citizenship after this, but we recognize that they need to have had him on the team, and we're prepared to facilitate. And I believe we have done one or two such cases before, many years ago, if my memory serves me right. So it's something that we try to facilitate. But in that case, I believe there were about 3 or 4 people who were communicating with me by WhatsApp, and so I got confused myself, So I think it's miscommunication or some cross wires. Well, thank you very much, Tim and Gavin and Kimani. I hope I answered the questions to your satisfaction. I give you the information as I know it and as I have it. And I appreciate the fact that you made time to be there. And I appreciate the mutual respect that has been displayed and the professionalism. And that's what it is. And feel free to call me anytime. You don't have to wait for me to invite you to Honour Parley to ask me a question that you may have interest in Dominica News Online. And, feel free, and I will. If I do not want to answer, until I don't want to answer. If I answer, I'll give you an answer. But feel free to reach out to us anytime if you have any questions of concern on whether it's the neighborhood Choxy matter, whether it's the airport, whether it's the budget, whether it's vaccines, whether it's the COVID-19, whether it's my visit to my meeting in Venezuela, in Alba, an institution that is so important, now more than ever. And we thank the government of Venezuela, President Maduro, who is the constitutionally recognized president of Venezuela, and we congratulate Cuba for the vaccines, Abdala, which has a 92.6% efficacy rate. And here is a country that has been subjected to so many decades of embargo, trade and economic embargo, and they have the ability to develop a vaccine like this. And one can only imagine if they did not have this embargo on them, what would be their contribution to this world. And in the last 5 years, just because of the embargo, they've lost some $17 billion US. But it's an amazing country, amazing people, and we congratulate them and we celebrate their success, because their success is ours and their misery is our misery, because we're all part of this world of humanism, and this is why we always call for the removal of the embargo against Cuba, and to allow the people to decide their own destiny. Every country is free to decide the future of themselves, and Cuba should not be denied of that right. So I want to thank all of you, and let us look forward for next week as we thank the Lord. Again, let us look at the glass half full rather than half empty. And as the psalmist says, his cup runneth over. And I believe that, I don't believe that the psalmist had everything he wanted, but he thanked God for whatever the Lord provided him. And I think we have to be grateful for the little that we have, so that our cup can runneth over. But if we don't show gratitude for what we have, then our prayers will never be answered. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. And as Job says, naked I come into this earth, naked I shall return. And thanks be to God. And Job was subjected to so many trials, and the Lord tested him. And I sometimes see my life almost like Job, but my faith remains in my Lord, and my faith remains in his country. And we shall continue to persevere as we work together towards addressing so many issues, not only confronting Dominica, but the rest of the world of which we're part of. So God bless you. Let us be positive, let us be constructive. And I look forward to the day when we can set aside this unnecessary internecine political battles. Let us fight the elections hard, and whoever wins, we celebrate the victory and work together until the next election is over. But we cannot be politicking for entire 5 years and dividing the nation and so forth. So I have no ill will against anybody. I'm only making my contribution in my humble and way that the Lord has allowed me to do. And when he decides he wants to set me aside, then he shall do so. But let's work together. We have a country to build. We have all of these issues brought about by COVID-19 that we have to overcome. We are facing a hurricane season. We all saw what Hurricane Maria did to us. And we have to be mindful of these things, and as we work together to build this country. So thank you again, gentlemen, lady. As I said, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you for having us.
You could call the Permanent Secretary of the Prime Minister to ask your questions if you can't find me on WhatsApp. But I'm more than willing to subject myself to a one-on-one interview with you, or any questions you may have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. I did not imagine that the prayers of my country would have been answered so swiftly.
Vaccine. Under COVID pressure in we country, mentally, socially, economically. Look, we get a blessing rather quickly to bring us back to some kind of normalcy. Yes, you over 18, take the vaccine. To protect your family, take the vaccine. To safeguard the elderly, take the vaccine. To bring back with festivals, take the vaccine. Take the vaccine, take the vaccine. Need it, take the vaccine. Take the vaccine. Need it.
This is a message from Tasha P. and the Health Promotion Unit of the Ministry of Health, Dominica.